Captain Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES Harrison and stared at the huge alien ship floating in space. The thing was massive. It looked like someone had taken a crystal palace and launched it into the stars. Blue lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt his eyes to watch. "Captain, please remember the protocols," Commander Lisa Barnes said for the 10th time that morning. She held a tablet with dozens of rules about how to talk to aliens. No sudden movements. No casual language. Address the princess as Your Royal Thermal Magnificence and wait for her to speak first. Jake nodded, but he wasn't really listening. He had been in the military for 15 years. He had fought pirates and rebels across 3 star systems, but he had never met an alien before. Nobody had. This was the first time humans had ever talked to another intelligent species. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 3 whole star systems. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had built. When they sent a message to Earth 6 months ago, every government on the planet nearly panicked. The aliens wanted to meet. They said it was important. Why did they ask for a military ship? Lieutenant Alex Stone asked from his position at the communications console. If they wanted peace talks, wouldn't they want diplomats? Maybe they respect strength, Dr. Carol White said. She was the ship's scientist, brought along to study anything alien they might encounter. Or maybe they want to see what kind of weapons we have. Jake checked his uniform one more time. The brass back on Earth had given him very simple orders. Don't start a war. Don't insult the aliens. Try to learn what they want. If possible, make friends. Incoming transmission, Alex announced. They're requesting visual contact. Put it on screen, Jake said. The main viewer flickered and then showed the inside of the alien ship. Jake's mouth fell open. The alien princess stood in what looked like a room made of pure light. Crystals grew from the walls and ceiling, each one glowing with soft blue radiance. But the princess herself was what made Jake forget how to breathe. She was 7 feet tall and had 4 arms. Her skin was blue like deep ocean water, but it sparkled like someone had mixed diamonds into it. She had no hair, but instead crystalline structures grew from her head in elegant patterns. Her face was humanoid but perfect in a way that seemed impossible. When she moved, light seemed to follow her. Greetings, humans of Earth, the princess said. Her voice was like music played on instruments that didn't exist. I am Princess Zarathis of the Zephyrian Empire. We have traveled far to meet with your species. Commander Barnes stepped forward and began reading from her tablet. Your Royal Thermal Magnificence, we are honored by your presence. The human delegation wishes to express our gratitude for this historic meeting and our hope for peaceful relations between our peoples. The princess listened politely, but Jake could see she looked bored. Her 4 eyes moved around the bridge, studying the humans with obvious curiosity. Your formal words are appreciated, Princess Zarathis said, but we are more interested in understanding your true nature. We have observed your species from a distance. You intrigue us. Jake found himself staring at the way light played across her crystalline features. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Beautiful wasn't the right word. She was something beyond beautiful. Captain Murphy, Commander Barnes whispered. You should introduce yourself. Jake stepped forward. He opened his mouth to recite the formal greeting Barnes had made him practice. Instead, what came out was, damn, she's hot. The bridge went completely silent. Dr. White made a small choking sound. Commander Barnes looked like she might faint. Lieutenant Stone's face turned bright red. On the screen, Princess Zarathis tilted her head to one side. Her 4 eyes focused on Jake with sudden interest. Please repeat that phrase, Captain Murphy, she said. Our translators are having difficulty with your meaning. Jake felt his career ending in real time. Back on Earth, Admiral Fisher was probably already preparing court-martial papers. He had just called an alien princess hot on an open communication channel during the most important diplomatic contact in human history. Jake stammered. The captain means no disrespect. Your Royal Thermal Magnificence, Commander Barnes jumped in quickly. It was merely an expression of appreciation for your presence. But Princess Zarathis held up one of her 4 hands. No, please. Captain Murphy, I wish to hear your explanation directly. What did you mean by this word, hot? Jake looked around the bridge. Everyone was staring at him. Through the communication link, he could see alien figures moving behind the princess, probably her advisors. They all seemed to be watching him with the same curious intensity. He made a decision that would change everything. Instead of trying to cover up his mistake, he decided to be honest. "Where I come from, when we say someone is hot, it means they're beautiful," Jake said. "Really beautiful. The kind of beautiful that makes you stop thinking straight." Princess Zarathis was quiet for a long moment. Behind her, the other aliens whispered to each other in their musical language. "You find me beautiful?" she asked. "Yeah," Jake said. "I mean, yes, your royal, magnificence. You're probably the most beautiful being I've ever seen." Something changed in the princess's expression. The formal mask she had been wearing seemed to slip away. For a moment she looked almost vulnerable. "This is unexpected," she said softly. "In all our observations of your species, we did not anticipate such directness, such honesty without calculation." Commander Barnes shot Jake a look that could melt steel. Dr. White was furiously taking notes. Lieutenant Stone had his head in his hands. "Captain Murphy," Princess Zarathis said, "I would like to continue this conversation. Would you be willing to meet with me in person?" "In person?" Jake asked. "Our ship has facilities that can accommodate your biology. I find myself curious about this human concept of hotness and the mind that would speak such thoughts without fear." Jake looked at Commander Barnes, who was shaking her head frantically. He looked at Dr. White, who was making throat-cutting gestures. He looked at Lieutenant Stone, who was still hiding behind his hands. Then he looked back at Princess Zarathis, who was watching him with those 4 amazing eyes. "Sure," Jake said. "I'd like that." And with those words, everything changed. Jake Murphy had been in trouble before, but never quite like this. He stood in his quarters aboard the UES Harrison, while Admiral Roy Fisher's angry face filled the communication screen. The Admiral was shouting so loud that Jake was sure the entire ship could hear him. "You called an alien princess hot?" Admiral Fisher yelled. "During first contact? Are you completely insane, Murphy?" "Sir, I can explain," Jake started. "Explain? You just threw away humanity's best chance at peaceful relations with an advanced alien civilization because you couldn't keep your mouth shut for 5 minutes. Jake winced. When the Admiral put it like that, it did sound pretty bad. "Sir, the princess wants to meet with me," Jake said. She seemed interested in continuing the conversation. Admiral Fisher's face turned an even darker shade of red. "Oh, she's interested, all right. Probably interested in vaporizing you and your entire ship. Do you have any idea what their weapons could do to us?" Before Jake could answer, Commander Barnes appeared on another part of the screen. "Admiral, we have an update from Dr. White. She's been analyzing the alien language and cultural databases. I think you need to hear this." Dr. White's voice came through the speakers. She sounded excited. "Admiral, I've made an incredible discovery. The Zephyrian language has a concept called thermal appreciation. It's deeply tied to their culture and biology." "Get to the point." "Doctor," Admiral Fisher said, "Zephyrians can sense the life energy and heat patterns of other living beings. In their society, being able to recognize and appreciate someone's thermal signature is considered the highest form of respect. It's usually only done between close family members or the most honored individuals." Jake felt a spark of hope. Maybe he hadn't completely destroyed everything after all. When Captain Murphy called the princess hot, our translators picked up the thermal aspect of the word. Dr. White continued. "The princess thinks he was giving her the greatest compliment possible in Zephyrian culture." Admiral Fisher was quiet for a moment. "Are you telling me that Murphy accidentally stumbled into saying exactly the right thing?" "It's more than that, sir," Commander Barnes added. "The princess's cultural advisor sent us a message. They're fascinated by human directness. Apparently, most species they've encountered are either too afraid to speak honestly or spend all their time calculating political advantages. They've never met anyone who would just say what they really think." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. "So I'm not getting court-martialed?" "Don't push it, Murphy," Admiral Fisher growled. "But it looks like your big mouth might have actually helped for once. The princess has requested a formal cultural exchange meeting. She specifically wants you there as the human representative." "Me? But I don't know anything about diplomacy." "That seems to be exactly what she likes about you," Commander Barnes said. "She told her advisor that she wants to understand this human who speaks without masks or hidden meanings." 3 hours later, Jake found himself in the transporter room, preparing to beam over to the alien ship. Dr. White had given him a crash course in Zephyrian customs, while Commander Barnes had tried to teach him basic diplomatic protocol. Most of it went in one ear and out the other. Remember, Dr. White said, Zephyrians communicate through light patterns as well as words. If her skin gets brighter, it usually means she's interested or excited. If it dims, she might be confused or upset. And whatever you do, don't touch anything without permission, Commander Barnes added. Their technology is so advanced that you could accidentally start a war by pushing the wrong button. The transporter beam grabbed Jake and the world dissolved into sparkles. When it reformed, he was standing in the most beautiful room he had ever seen. The walls were made of crystal that pulsed with soft light. Plants that looked like they were made of liquid starlight grew in patterns around the room. The floor felt warm under his feet and seemed to glow with each step he took. Princess Zarathus stood in the center of the room, but she wasn't alone. A tall male Zephyrian stood beside her, wearing what looked like military decorations. His skin was darker blue than hers, and his crystalline head structures were more angular. Captain Murphy, the princess said, and Jake noticed that her skin got a little brighter when she spoke his name. Welcome to my ship. This is Khyven, my chief advisor. Khyven studied Jake with obvious curiosity. So this is the human who practices thermal appreciation without fear, he said. His voice was deeper than the princess's, like distant thunder. Most interesting. I'm still not sure I understand what that means, Jake admitted. Princess Zarathus moved closer. Jake could feel warmth radiating from her skin. In our culture, recognizing the life force and beauty of another being is a sacred act. It requires trust and honesty. Most species we have encountered hide their true thoughts behind layers of deception. Humans don't do that? Jake asked. You did not, she said. When you saw me, you spoke your immediate reaction. No calculation. No political consideration. Just honest appreciation, Khyven nodded. This is why the princess requested this meeting. We have been searching for allies in a coming conflict. But how can we trust species that never show their true nature? Jake felt like he was missing something important. What kind of conflict? The princess's skin dimmed slightly. There is a threat moving through our region of space. Machines that consume entire worlds for raw materials. They call themselves the Void Collective. They see biological life as inefficient and wasteful. They have been destroying planets for decades, Khyven added, converting everything into more machines. We have the technology to fight them, but we think like they do. Princess Zarathus finished. Logically, predictably, the machines can calculate our every move because we follow patterns they understand. Jake was starting to see where this was going. And you think humans might be different? Your first words to our princess proved that humans can be completely unpredictable, Khyven said. No logical being would risk diplomatic disaster by speaking so honestly during first contact. Yet somehow it was exactly the right thing to say. Princess Zarathus stepped even closer. Her four eyes studied Jake's face intently. Captain Murphy, would you be willing to teach us about human unpredictability? In exchange, we could share our technology and knowledge. Jake thought about Admiral Fisher's angry face. He thought about the responsibility of representing all of humanity. He thought about giant machines eating planets. Then he looked at Princess Zarathus, whose skin was glowing brighter with hope and excitement, and he did what came naturally. Sure, he said, but I have to warn you, we humans can be pretty crazy sometimes. The princess's skin blazed with light. Captain Murphy, I believe that is exactly what we need. Khyven made a sound that might have been laughter. This alliance should be very interesting indeed. Jake had no idea how right they both were. Professor Kate Young arrived on the UES Harrison 3 days later, looking tired and confused. She had been rushed from her university on Earth with barely time to pack a bag. As humanity's leading expert on alien cultures, she was supposedly the person best qualified to handle the situation. The problem was, nobody had ever actually met aliens before. Let me understand this correctly, she said to Jake as they walked toward the meeting room. You accidentally gave the alien princess the greatest compliment possible in her culture by calling her hot. That's about right, Jake said. And now she wants to form a military alliance based on human unpredictability. Yeah. Professor Young stopped walking and rubbed her temples. Captain Murphy, I have 3 degrees in anthropology and I've studied every theory about alien contact. None of them covered this situation. Maybe that's the point, Jake said. Nobody expected it, so it worked. They entered the meeting room where Princess Zarathus was waiting with several other aliens. Jake had learned to read her mood by watching her skin. Right now she was glowing with excitement. Professor Young, the princess said, Captain Murphy has told me about your expertise in studying different cultures. We are eager to learn about human social patterns. Professor Young sat down carefully.
She had prepared a speech about cultural exchange and mutual understanding.
Instead, she found herself asking, "What makes you think humans are so different from other species?" A new alien stepped forward. He was taller than the princess and wore what looked like armor made of black crystal. His skin was darker blue, almost purple, and his head structures were sharp and angular. "I am Prince Vorthak, military commander of the Zephyrian fleet," he said. His voice was cold and hard. "I will answer your question." Prince Vorthak touched a control and the room filled with holographic displays. Jake saw star maps, battle reports, and images of destroyed planets. "We have encountered 47 different intelligent species in this galaxy," the prince said. "When faced with the Void Collective, they all react in predictable ways. They either surrender immediately, fight with pure logic, or run away. The machines can calculate all of these responses." Professor Young studied the displays. "What about the species that fought back? Some of them had to win occasionally." "They won individual battles," Princess Zarathis said sadly. "But the Void Collective learns from every encounter. They update their calculations and become stronger. Eventually, even the most logical species fall to them." Prince Vorthak changed the display to show a recording of a space battle. Jake watched as neat formations of alien ships fought against geometric patterns of machine vessels. Everything looked precise and calculated. "Every species fights the same way," the prince continued. "Maximum efficiency. Logical tactics. Predictable responses to known situations. So what makes humans different?" Professor Young asked. Jake spoke up. "We're crazy." Prince Vorthak's skin dimmed with what Jake had learned was confusion. "Please explain this concept of crazy." Jake looked at Professor Young, who nodded for him to continue. "Well," Jake said, "sometimes we do things that don't make sense. We fight when we should run. We help people who can't help us back. We take risks that any logical person would avoid." "Yesterday, Captain Murphy showed me records of human military history," Princess Zarathis added. "There are countless examples of small human forces defeating much larger enemies through tactics that should not work." Professor Young's eyes lit up with understanding. "You mean we're emotionally driven rather than purely logical?" "More than that," the princess said. Her skin was getting brighter. "You are unpredictable in ways that our computer models cannot account for. When Captain Murphy called me hot, no calculation could have predicted that response." Prince Vorthak still looked skeptical. "Emotional responses and unpredictability are not military advantages. They lead to mistakes and defeat. Let me show you something," Jake said. He pulled up his own tablet and accessed human military records. 300 years ago, humans fought a war against an artificial intelligence called Ares. It had taken control of most of our automated systems. The aliens gathered around as Jake displayed the historical records. Ares could predict every logical response, Jake continued. It knew how rational military commanders would react to any situation. But humans started using tactics that made no sense. We attacked when we should have defended. We retreated when we were winning. We made decisions based on hunches and gut feelings. And this worked? Prince Vorthak asked. Ares couldn't adapt fast enough, Professor Young said, understanding where this was going. It was designed to counter logical opponents. Random emotional decisions broke its prediction models. Princess Zarathis was practically glowing now. This is exactly what we need against the Void Collective. They have been defeating us because they can calculate our every move. But how do we teach this unpredictability? Prince Vorthak asked. If it becomes a system, then it is no longer unpredictable. Jake grinned. That's the beauty of it. You can't really teach crazy. It just happens. Over the next few hours, Jake found himself running an informal strategy session with some of the most advanced military minds in the galaxy. He showed them human battle records, explained concepts like going with your gut, and thinking outside the box. The aliens were fascinated by human concepts of inspiration, intuition, and spontaneous decision-making. Princess Zarathis took extensive notes while Prince Vorthak asked increasingly detailed questions about tactics that seemed to make no logical sense. Let me see if I understand, the prince said. In this battle, the human commander divided his forces when he should have concentrated them, attacked the enemy's strongest point instead of their weakest, and ignored his own supply lines. And he won, Jake said. because the enemy was expecting him to do the smart thing. Prince Vorthak's skin flickered through several colors. This is either brilliant or insane. Sometimes there's no difference, Professor Young said. Princess Zarathis stood up suddenly. We must test this theory. Prince Vorthak, prepare a simulation. We will run human unpredictability against void collective tactics. You want me to make bad tactical decisions on purpose? The prince asked. Not bad, Jake said. Just unexpected. Do what feels right instead of what makes sense. The prince looked like he was in physical pain. This goes against everything I have been taught about warfare. Good, Jake said. That means it's working. As they prepared for the simulation, Princess Zarathis pulled Jake aside. Captain Murphy, I must ask you something. When you first called me hot, was it a calculated diplomatic move? Jake laughed. Are you kidding? I was terrified I'd started a war. Her skin brightened with what he now recognized as delight. Perfect. That is exactly the kind of honest unpredictability we need. I'm still not sure I understand why you trust us so much, Jake said. Princess Zarathis looked at him with all four of her amazing eyes. Because when you see beauty, you speak of it without fear. When you see truth, you say it without calculation. The galaxy has forgotten how to do this. Perhaps that is why we have been losing to machines. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. He was pretty sure it wasn't just the alien atmosphere. So what happens now? He asked. Now we teach machines that not all biological life follows logical patterns, she said. And you, Captain Murphy, are going to help us be beautifully, unpredictably human. 2 weeks later, Jake stood on the bridge of a Zephyrian warship and tried not to throw up. The artificial gravity was slightly different from human ships, and the constant light patterns on the walls made his head spin, but he was getting used to it. Captain Murphy, incoming human fleet, announced Zixandra, a young Zephyrian warrior who had become his unofficial translator. Her skin was bright green instead of blue, which apparently meant she was from a different family group. Vice Admiral Tony Martinez requests permission to join the exercise. Jake looked at Princess Zarathis, who was standing at what humans would call the captain's chair, except it was made of floating crystal and somehow held her four-armed body perfectly. What do you think? Ready to show off what we've learned? Her skin shimmered with excitement. I believe so, though I confess thinking illogically still feels wrong to me. Prince Vorthak approached them. Over the past 2 weeks, he had gone from skeptical to grudgingly impressed to completely obsessed with human tactical thinking. His skin flickered through rapid color changes, which Jake had learned meant he was thinking hard. I have studied every human military engagement in your database, the prince said. There are patterns, but they are emotional patterns rather than logical ones. Humans fight harder when protecting something they love. They take greater risks when they are angry. They make impossible victories when they refuse to give up. That sounds about right, Jake said. But how do we simulate these emotions in battle? The prince asked. Zephyrians do not experience anger or love the same way humans do. Princess Zarathis had been working on this problem. We have been practicing what Captain Murphy calls going with our gut. Instead of calculating the optimal solution, we make decisions based on immediate feeling. Vice Admiral Martinez's fleet took position near the Zephyrian ships. Jake could see the human vessels on the main display. They looked tiny and primitive compared to the crystal ships around them, but he felt a surge of pride anyway. Admiral Martinez to Captain Murphy, came the voice over the communication system. I have to admit, Jake, when Admiral Fisher told me you were teaching aliens how to fight, I thought he'd lost his mind. Still might have, sir, Jake replied. But the princess thinks it might work. The Zephyrian High Council has agreed to this demonstration, Princess Zarathis added, speaking into the communicator. If your combined tactics prove effective, we will formalize our alliance. Commander Ben Lewis's voice joined the conversation. He was Admiral Martinez's tactical specialist, and Jake had worked with him before. We've loaded the simulation parameters you sent us. I have to say some of these strategies look completely insane. That's the idea, Jake said. The war game began. On one side, they had a combined human Zephyrian fleet. On the other, a computer simulation of void collective forces based on actual battle data. The machine fleet was 3 times larger and had superior firepower. Simulation starting, Zixandra announced. Void collective forces are approaching in standard geometric formation. Jake watched the display as thousands of machine ships arranged themselves in perfect mathematical patterns. Every movement was calculated for maximum efficiency. It was beautiful in a cold, heartless way. Standard response would be to form defensive positions and concentrate fire on the weakest points, Prince Vorthak said. He was narrating his thoughts as part of the exercise. Instead, He paused, looking uncomfortable. I will trust my instincts. The prince gave orders that made no tactical sense. Instead of forming a defensive line, the Zephyrian ships scattered randomly. Instead of targeting weak points, they focused fire on the strongest enemy formations. On the human side, Admiral Martinez was doing equally crazy things. His ships moved in patterns that looked more like a dance than a battle formation. Void Collective Simulation is adapting, Zixandra reported. They are trying to calculate our strategy. Good, Jake said. Let them try. For the next hour, both fleets threw out every rule of military tactics. They attacked when they should have retreated. They split their forces when they should have concentrated. They ignored supply lines and communication protocols. The computer simulation kept trying to adapt, but every time it started to predict their moves, the human and Zephyrian commanders would do something even more unexpected. The simulation is failing, Zixandra announced with amazement. Void collective forces are unable to maintain tactical cohesion. They are requesting additional processing power to handle the variables. Humans and Zephyrians are winning? Prince Vorthak asked in disbelief. We're not just winning, Admiral Martinez said over the communicator. We're completely confusing them. The simulation can't handle the fact that we're not trying to be efficient. Princess Zarathis was glowing so brightly that Jake had to squint. This is incredible. For the first time in decades, we have defeated Void Collective tactics, but their celebration was cut short by an urgent alarm. Princess, Kaivan's voice came through the ship's communication system. We have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting actual Void Collective forces at the edge of our space. The bridge went silent. Jake felt his stomach drop. How many ships? Princess Zarathis asked. Thousands. It appears to be their main fleet. They are moving toward our core systems. Prince Vorthak's skin went completely dark. They know about our alliance with the humans. They must see it as a threat to their expansion. How long do we have? Jake asked. At their current speed, they will reach Zephyrian Prime in 6 days, Kaivan replied. Princess Zarathis turned to Jake. Captain Murphy, I formally request that you serve as human liaison in the coming battle. Your people's unpredictability may be our only hope. Jake thought about the thousands of machine ships heading their way. He thought about planets being consumed and turned into raw materials. He thought about the princess trusting him with the survival of her entire civilization. I accept, he said, but I'm going to need more humans. A lot more. Already on it, Admiral Martinez said. Admiral Fisher is sending every available ship. We'll have a full battle fleet here in 4 days. Princess Zarathis stepped close to Jake. Her skin was shifting through complex patterns of light. In our culture, before a great battle, we perform the ritual of thermal bonding, she said. We share our life energy with our closest allies. She reached out with one of her 4 hands. Jake took it without hesitation. He felt warmth flow between them, and for a moment he could sense her emotions. Determination, fear, hope, and something else. Something that felt like trust mixed with affection. Thank you, Jake Murphy, she said, using his first name for the first time, for showing us that logic is not the only path to victory. Thank you for trusting a guy who talks before he thinks, Jake replied. Prince Vorthak joined them. If we are to fight machines, we will need to be more unpredictable than ever before. Don't worry, Jake said, looking out at the stars where the enemy fleet was approaching. Humans have been doing crazy things for thousands of years. It's what we're best at. As if to prove his point, Admiral Martinez's voice came over the communicator. Hey Jake, I just had a crazy idea about ramming tactics. Want to hear it? Princess Zarathis's skin blazed with light. I think I am beginning to understand why the galaxy needs humans. Jake grinned. You haven't seen anything yet. The Void Collective fleet arrived exactly when predicted. Jake stood on the bridge of the combined human Zephyrian command ship and watched thousands of machine vessels drop out of hyperspace. They arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns that stretched across space like a mechanical constellation. Enemy fleet composition, 2,400 ships, reported Zixandra. All vessels appear to be controlled by a single artificial intelligence. That's Zero Prime, Princess Zarathis said grimly. The central AI that commands their entire force. We've encountered it before. It learns from every battle and never makes the same mistake twice. Jake studied the enemy formation on the main display. Every ship was positioned with mathematical precision. No wasted movement, no random elements. It was like looking at a giant computer program made of metal and death. How many ships do we have? He asked. 800 Zephyrian vessels and 300 human ships, Prince Vorthak replied. We are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. But we have something they don't, Jake said. The ability to do stupid things that somehow work. Admiral Martinez's voice came through the communicator from his flagship. Jake, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that central ship. That has to be Zero Prime's command vessel. Confirmed, said Colonel Amy Ross, who was commanding the Human Special Forces contingent. If we can take out the main AI, their whole fleet should collapse. Problem is, it's protected by about 500 ships and enough firepower to crack a moon. Jake looked at Princess Zarathis. Over the past few weeks, he had learned to read her moods perfectly. Right now, her skin was dim with worry. What would the logical approach be? He asked. Systematic assault. Prince Vorthak answered immediately. Eliminate the outer defensive layers one by one. Minimize losses while gradually working toward the center. It would take hours and cost thousands of ships. And Zero Prime would calculate our every move, the princess added. It has defeated this strategy countless times before. Jake nodded. So we do the opposite. We go straight at it. The bridge went quiet. Zixandra's skin flickered through rapid color changes. Prince Vorthak looked like he was in physical pain. Captain Murphy, the prince said slowly. That would be suicide. The defensive grid around Zero Prime's ship is impenetrable. Only if you try to penetrate it logically, Jake said. But what if we don't try to break through? What if we just ignore it? Admiral Martinez's voice crackled with interest. I'm listening. Jake pointed at the display. Look at their formation. It's perfect, right? Every ship exactly where it should be for maximum defensive efficiency. Yes, Princess Zarathis said. So what happens if we attack from a direction that doesn't exist? Colonel Ross laughed. Jake, I think I know what you're getting at. It's completely insane. The best kind of insane, Jake agreed. Thane Kyle Morris, the Zephyrian fleet admiral, joined the conversation from his ship. Would someone please explain this strategy? High tactical computers are requesting clarification. We're going to ram Zero Prime's command ship, Jake said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. Ram it? Prince Vorthak finally managed. With what? With everything, Jake said. The entire combined fleet. Straight through their defensive grid. No fancy tactics, no complex maneuvers, just a direct charge. That is not a strategy, Thane Kalmoris protested. That is mass suicide, is it? Jake asked. Zero Prime has been fighting logical opponents for decades. It expects us to value ship preservation, tactical advantage, strategic positioning. What if we just don't care about any of that? Princess Zarathis was starting to glow. You want to confuse the AI by attacking in a way that makes no tactical sense. Exactly. Every simulation it's ever run assumes that we want to win with minimal losses. But what if our only goal is to ram that command ship no matter what it costs? Admiral Martinez was already running calculations. It could work. If we commit everything to a single charge, Zero Prime might not be able to adapt fast enough. Its defensive grid is designed to handle systematic attacks, not kamikaze runs. Kamikaze? Zixandra asked. Human word for deliberate sacrifice attacks, Colonel Ross explained. Very unpredictable. Very effective against opponents who don't expect them. Prince Vorthak's skin was cycling through colors so fast it hurt to look at. This plan violates every principle of warfare I have ever learned. Good, Jake said. That means it's perfect. The combined fleet began moving into attack formation. Instead of the careful positioning that Zephyrian doctrine demanded, ships arranged themselves in a loose wedge pointed directly at Zero Prime's position. Enemy fleet is responding, Zixandra reported. They are strengthening defensive positions around the command ship. Let them, Jake said. The more ships they bunch up, the bigger the explosion when we hit them. As the human and Zephyrian ships accelerated toward the enemy, Jake felt the familiar mix of terror and excitement that came before every battle. But this time was different. This time he wasn't just fighting for military objectives. He was fighting for the princess, for her people, for the crazy alliance they had built together. Zero Prime is attempting to calculate our strategy, reported Admiral Martinez. Our tactical AI is showing massive processing spikes from their command ship. It can't figure out what we're doing, Princess Zarathis said with growing excitement. It doesn't understand an attack with no regard for survival. The enemy fleet opened fire. Space filled with energy beams and missile trails. Ships exploded on both sides as the two forces crashed together, but the human Zephyrian fleet didn't slow down or try to minimize damage. They just kept charging forward. This is insane, Prince Vorthak shouted over the noise of battle. We're losing ships faster than... We're winning, Jake interrupted. Look at their formation. The perfect geometric patterns of the Void Collective were breaking down. Ships were moving out of position, trying to intercept attacks that came from impossible angles. Zero Prime's tactical grid was overloading as it tried to process an assault that made no logical sense. Command ship dead ahead, Colonel Ross announced. All remaining ships follow my lead. We're going in. The final charge was pure chaos. Human ships weaved between Zephyrian vessels as both fleets threw themselves at Zero Prime's command ship. The AI tried desperately to coordinate a defense, but it couldn't predict movements based on emotion and intuition rather than logic. Jake watched the main display as Princess Zarathis's ship, with him aboard, led the final assault. Energy beams tore through the hull around them, but they kept going. Jake, the princess said, her skin blazing with light, I want you to know that meeting you has been the greatest honor of my life. Same here, he said, taking her hand as the command ship loomed ahead of them. But at the last second, their combined firepower broke through Zero Prime's defenses. The AI's command ship exploded in a burst of light that lit up half the star system. When the light faded, the remaining Void Collective ships were drifting helplessly. Without their central AI, they were just empty metal husks. We did it, Admiral Martinez said over the communicator. His voice was filled with disbelief. We actually did it. Princess Zarathis turned to Jake, her 4 eyes bright with tears that sparkled like diamonds. Your unpredictability saved us all. Our unpredictability, Jake corrected. You learned to think like humans. That's what made the difference. 3 months later, Jake stood in the newly established human embassy on Zephyrian Prime. The building was a marvel of both human and alien architecture, with crystal walls that responded to human emotions and rooms that adjusted their temperature based on who was present. Princess Zarathis entered his office, and Jake felt the same jolt of attraction he had experienced during their first meeting. The difference was now he knew she felt it too. Ambassador Murphy, she said formally, then smiled. I still cannot believe that is your official title now. I still can't believe I went from calling you hot to becoming a diplomat, Jake replied. About that, the princess said, moving closer. I have been studying human relationship customs. I believe the correct response to your original compliment would be to say that you are also hot, Jake laughed. In human culture, that would be considered a very good thing. Then I will say it more often, she said, her skin glowing with warmth and affection. You are thermally magnificent, Jake Murphy. Hot enough to melt steel and unpredictable enough to change the galaxy. Jake took her 4 hands in his 2. You know what? I think this is going to be a very interesting partnership. The most interesting in galactic history, she agreed. And as their 2 species began building a future together, based on the simple truth that sometimes honesty and unpredictability were worth more than all the logic in the universe, Jake realized that the best diplomacy really did come from just saying what you thought, even when what you thought was that an alien princess was hot.